How Zoro was able to control Enma. Roronoa Zoro is the Straw Hat's swordsman with a passion for cursed swords. Zoro's love for swordsmanship grew in the Shimotsuki village in the East Blue, where Kuina, his childhood friend, constantly tested him. Though he had not thought much of it before, Zoro's memories in the Shimotsuki village will assist him in understanding what it means to control Enma, one of the 21 great grade swords. Enma, named after the lord of the underworld, had tested Zoro since it was given to him by Hiyori. Although Enma could be considered a stubborn sword for constantly draining Zoro's haki, it had only chosen one wielder since it had been created and thus had high standards for the next swordsman to wield it. So, how was Zoro able to control Enma in one piece? How did Zoro obtain Enma? Roronoa Zoro has been a passionate swordsman since he was younger, studying to become a swordsman in the Shimotsuki village in East Blue. Although Zoro was unaware of it then, he was a descendant of the Shimotsuki clan, who once lived in Wano country as a respected clan. Throughout the series, Zoro has always been fascinated with swords and skilled swordsmen. During the Wano country arc, Zoro will unveil old memories of his time with Shimotsuki Kozaburo, the swordsmith who crafted the great grade blades, Wado Ikimonji, and Enma. Zoro would then inherit Wado Ikimonji after Kuina died, as it had been her prized sword, given to her by her grandfather Kozaburo. During Zoro's time studying swordsmanship at the village, he would also learn about the intricacies of swords and how they gained their names. After this, Zoro would go on to obtain swords that have been known as cursed. Throughout the series, Zoro would obtain Shisui, one of the 21 great grade swords Shimotsuki Ryuma previously wielded. After Ryuma was defeated by Zoro during the Thriller Bark arc, as a parting gift, Ryuma bestowed Zoro with Shisui to replace Zoro's broken sword. Like many of his swords, Zoro had a great attachment to them, as they were given to him by a renowned samurai or swordsman whom Zoro respected. However, during the Wano arc, Zoro will learn more about the sword's owner and where his official resting place lies. After Zoro escaped the corrupt magistrate, Shisui was stolen by Onimaru, who disguised himself as Gyukimaru, a highway robber, to prevent thievery and dishonor the samurai who had lost their lives in Ringo. When Onimaru saw Shisui, he immediately returned it to Shimotsuki Ryuma's grave, preventing Zoro from regaining it. As Shisui was considered a national treasure of the sword god Ryuma, who had passed centuries prior, Onimaru did not want Zoro to regain access to the sword as he believed Zoro had stolen it. Hiyori was aware of the significance of the sword Shisui and offered Zoro the Meidu Enma, another legendary sword that was the only blade that had ever injured Kaido. While Zoro was not necessarily happy about returning Shisui, obtaining Enma made up for the exchange. How was Zoro able to control Enma? When Zoro first obtained Enma, it tested his limitations by drawing out Zoro's Ryuo or haki. Immediately, Enma allowed Zoro to change the coastline with a single slash, however, at the cost of turning his arm into a husk of its former self. While Zoro was able to gain control over Enma quickly, Enma still needed to be tamed by Zoro. Until Zoro's battle with King, he had been unable to tame Enma without it drawing too much haki from him. During the battle, Zoro struggled to control Enma, as it would continuously draw out his haki, leaving him fatigued and with the possibility of death on the horizon if he did not devise a plan to control Enma. During this time, Zoro understood what Enma was doing and why it was doing this. Through this time, Zoro realized who the swordsmith of Enma was. Shimotsuki Kozaburo, the village geezer in the East Blue. Through Zoro's understanding of the purpose of swords and cursed blades, Zoro understood that Enma was merely testing Zoro's ability, as Kazuki Oden could easily wield it without much thought. By understanding that the sword was not acting out of malice but more testing Zoro's limitation, Zoro understood that he needed to measure up to its standards. With this, Zoro understood that he needed to continue pushing his limits while pouring out haki, as this was one of the only ways Enma would accept him as a wielder. However, through this, Zoro was also able to awaken his dormant conqueror's haki, which was likely the deciding factor in what was needed to control Enma, as it required to draw haki and be tamed by the conqueror's haki continuously.